Kia ora team, how are we doing today? Hopefully you can all hear me, everything is coming through clear. Let me know in the chat how things are going. All right, so today we've got a bit of a shorter stream because it's a shorter week. Hopefully we'll be through this reasonably quickly. You can get on with your work and ask any questions that you need to ask. You will have seen Mrs. Staples has already posted in your Google Classroom with what her expectations are of you for this week. But to get started, we're going to start with the same mahia that is in her slides. What is the smallest unit of all living things? If you're watching live, you can answer this in the chat. If you're watching this retrospectively, you can write down your answer on a piece of paper and then see if you're right. If you need to, you can pause this now. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds to try and answer that. It's all good if you just want to skip through to the answer. Right, so the answer is obviously a cell. Cells are the smallest unit of life and they are the building blocks of life. And that's what we're going to be focusing our topic on today. We're going to understand types of cells, levels of organizations, characteristics of body systems. Hopefully this will be not super new to you guys. You'll be comfortable with this content from year 9. Some of it might have slipped through your memory, and that is absolutely okay. Looks like we're all good to go and you guys can hear me, you're answering, that's good. We'll make a start. All right, firstly, short week, less content, only 1 or 2 lessons for you guys to really go through today. Hopefully you've had a lovely long weekend. You will have noticed that this week Ms. Staples has created the assignment within your slides. You write the answers on the slides themselves. Hopefully that makes things a bit easier to follow and easier for you to hand in. I'll be going through all your work this week, including the work from your previous weeks, and putting little notes on there if need be. So if you need to do a revision of some of that previous work, hopefully you did that while you were studying for your test. That should be good. Also, one other thing to note is that we have a core class competition. Who can do the most work on EP this week? I think we have a good shot. I think you all are really intelligent and really capable, and I think we can do it, providing we put in the mahi, get it done. I think we can give all of those other Year 10 classes a good run for their money. What we'll be doing today is a little bit of a review, and we're going to be adapting the slides. The slides you're going to see are basically what Ms. Staples has got for you already. So hopefully they shouldn't be anything too new, particularly if you've already started the work this morning. Okay, I'm just going to have a double check. We've got no particular questions. Let's go. Let's get started. All right. Okay, classifying the kingdoms. So we've talked about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells last year. This slide asks you to compare these 2 diagrams. And what you'll notice is that we have our evolutionary tree. We see our eukaryotes developed after our prokaryotes developed. Over time, we see that we have developed a number of kingdoms, and we can classify these kingdoms based on the way the cells look and their history in evolution. We can see that there's some obvious differences between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. The biggest one being eukaryotic cells and eukaryotic organisms tend to be multicellular, whereas prokaryotic organisms tend to be single-celled. There's an activity there for you to stop and try and communicate, which you can work through in your own time. What you'll also notice is that on the next slide, Ms. Staples has given you some information to compare and contrast prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Hopefully you're comfortable with these terms and you're aware of which one we are. If we look at DNA, there's some big differences between the type of DNA that these organisms use. So circular versus linear, the presence or absence of introns. If we haven't heard of introns before, then I'll just tell you what those are. An intron is a section of DNA that is removed when that DNA is transformed into a message, into a messenger RNA. That messenger RNA is sent out of the nucleus. It's sent to a ribosome, a little machine designed to make proteins from instructions. And those mRNA molecules are adapted or changed to some extent by some of the cellular machinery. One of those things that changes is the removal of different sections called introns, and they leave other sections called exons. That gives us a greater degree of variety. It also allows for greater regulation of the instructions of life. Eukaryotes have those, prokaryotes tend not to. Organelles. Now, eukaryotes have a nucleus, prokaryotes don't. Eukaryotes tend to have membrane-bound organelles, and prokaryotes don't. Eukaryotes tend to have an 80S ribosome, and prokaryotes have a 70S ribosome. What that means you don't necessarily need to know, but you need to know that they work differently. They're organized differently, and as a result, we can classify them differently. Reproduction. There's some differences in the way that prokaryotes and eukaryotes reproduce. Hopefully you're aware of eukaryotic reproduction, mitosis and meiosis. We'll spend some more time on that this year. Lastly, we've got some stuff about our chromosomes, about whether they're paired or unpaired, and we've got some details about the average size. Eukaryotic organisms tend to be a lot larger, they can be more complex, and that's in part because of those other things that are there, because of those other details about how they're organized. You can remember this with the acronym DORA, DNA Organelles Reproduction Average Sized. Okay, our next slide. Key definitions, key terms for some organelles. Hopefully you're aware of these different organelles, but this is just an opportunity to have a bit of a refresher. Mitochondria provide energy for the cells. Endoplasmic reticulum is about transporting proteins and substances around the cell. Remember, we have rough and smooth, and they have different functions. Nucleus, that controls and regulates the cell. It is the location of DNA, of genetic material in our eukaryotic cells. The cytoplasm is that rich liquid filled with organelles and other goodness, which is used by the cell. It is where messages are passed. It is where everything sits. And that's bound within some membranes. There's some other organelles we'll need you to know, but hopefully that's just a bit of a refresher. What you should be able to go and do now, and this is a question for you to hand in your slides, is to go through and write out the names of organelles that you've been given the functions for, and write out the functions for organelles which are named here. You can try and write these in your own words for a bit of an extra challenge. I would encourage you to get this done early so then you can have some more time at the end of this week to chill a bit. Okay, next thing. Spotting the difference, plant and animal cells. Hopefully you're familiar with this at this point, and this is bringing back some memories. Your task is to go through these plant and animal cell diagrams and put a little Venn diagram. What is the same between them and what is specific to each? Hopefully you remember those Venn diagrams. You've got those two circles that overlap. That'll be up to you to place an image of this however you want on the next slide of the slides in that assignment for you. If you can do that, you're doing just fine. Hopefully remember some of these terms that these cells share. Cell membranes, cytoplasm, nucleus. Hopefully remember some of the different things that in particular a plant cell has, like a large central vacuole and the presence of chloroplasts, which are used for photosynthesis. Okay, I'll leave the others for you to write in. We've got some levels of organization that we need to know. In particular, knowing that as organisms increase the number of cells that they need to have levels of organization. Initially, we have just cells that perform a particular function, such as in a cell on an intestine whose job it is to have little extensions out into the lumen of the digestive system and absorb different nutrients as they go past. A group of cells together is called a tissue. If you organize a group of different tissues together, different layers, you end up with an organ. If you have a bunch of organs that work together to perform a function, that's called an organ system. And then lastly, when you pair all of those organ systems together, you get an organism. That's like us. Hopefully that is ringing some bells for you all now. What color is a chloroplast? Great question. It depends. So if we're looking at the chloroplasts in plants, mostly they can tend to be green. The reason why that is because that's the light they reflect. They absorb almost everything else. They use that, in particular blue, because that tends to be a higher energy, to conduct photosynthesis and make those complex sugars, which they can then use for energy. Hopefully that's ringing some bells. All right. Here is a bit of a task for you guys, same as the other one here. Ms. Staples has given you some information and left you some blanks. You can fill those in. Hopefully this shouldn't take you too long. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask our classmates either through this stream now during our Google Meet, or to ask using our Google Hangouts chat. Hopefully this should be a pretty straightforward task for you guys. The last big thing for you to do is a couple of pieces of independent work. This is a summary of the content that we've just gone through. You can see it's not a great deal of content. We've got 3 questions here. What is the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell? How do cells get energy to carry out their functions? And which body systems must interact in order for cells to make energy? Put in your explanation there. You can see you type in those answers and then submit your slides when you're done. You can add in more detail. I'd love to see that if you're keen on that sort of thing. I'd love to see what you guys have to read. But I will be going through those this week and giving you some feedback. All right, let's move on to our next thing. So I've got some information here on scheduling. One of the pieces of feedback I've received from you guys over the last couple of weeks is that not all of you have had conversations about how to schedule your days. So I thought we could use a bit of this introductory science lesson to the living world to talk about how to schedule, how we organize ourselves so that we can tackle all this information. Unfortunately, we're not Hermione. We don't have a time turner. We can't skip back in time, and we have to be efficient with how we use our time. We're going to use a little bit of a scientific approach, and what I'm going to do is go through the process that you use to schedule, some different tools you can use, and then an example. I'm going to try and do this on OneNote. Hopefully it works out. If it doesn't for whatever reason, you can let me know as we're going through, and I'll follow along and we'll make adjustments as needed. This will be my first time using like a OneNote whiteboard while we're doing this, so hopefully this all works out. Okay, let's just check if there's any questions. It looks like we're good. Oh, lovely to see you in here, Jerry and Mark. Make sure, by the way, if you are in another class, if you are supposed to be in another class right now, that you attend that class. If you're a Selwyn College student and you need to be in a Google Meet for a separate classroom, you should be in that class. That is your #1 priority. All right, let's have a look at how to schedule. Okay, we have 6 questions. This is the process. Hopefully remember Joel Embiid. Remember, we're trusting in the process. We're trusting in what we need to do. Your process here involves you asking 6 questions. The first question is, how much time do I have? You do not have 24 hours each day to get your stuff done. You need to sleep. You have a bunch of other things that you need to get done. You also should be doing this for your different activities. So if we're taking, for example, a look at our science activities for the week, how much time do you have to get that done? Maybe you look at the due date and figure it out. How much time do you have to get that done? The next thing you need to do is ask the question, what are my essentials? What are the non-negotiables? That includes things like sleep. It includes things like having dinner. It includes things like whatever activities or requests are asked of you by your family or by commitments to other things like sport. You can list those in order of importance, but it is important that you put those things in your schedule first. That then leaves you with some space to put in the other things. The next question is, what else is important to you? That might be things like exercise. It might be things like taking time to cook. It might be things like a job, or it might be things like hanging out with your mates. Whatever is really important at that particular point in time, and you can rank those and assort them correctly. You then need some wiggle room. You need some space in there that allows you, if certain tasks take longer than you expect, or the bus doesn't come on time, or whatever it may be, to have a little bit of wiggle room. And you can figure out where that is. What you don't want is a schedule that's back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and then if something goes wrong, everything is knocked to the wayside. You also need some time to be able to goof around and have fun. Maybe it's time to play video games, time to read a book, whatever it may be. You need to slot that in and make sure that although you might go into that time a little bit, that you're giving yourself some time to relax. The last thing you need to do once you've placed all these things in and you've lived out that time is to reflect back. And that's asking that question, how did this all go? How did our week go? How did the schedule go? And reflect, did I do a good job of listing when my essentials were due? Did I do a good job of ranking my importance? Did I give myself enough wiggle room? Did I give myself too much wiggle room? Did I give myself some time to goof around? Those are the questions you need to be asking as you go through this. If you've got any questions as we go through, you can ask them here. Okay. All right. If you are getting something like a puppy, you will need to allocate some time to goof around with that puppy, but it can't be all your time. Remember, there are other important things for you to get done as well. Okay, part 2, the tools. Now, there are a variety of tools at your disposal which you can use to make your life easier. Depending on who you are, you might want to use paper or you might want to use electronic resources. It's up to you what you use, but you've got to use what's best for you. There's some options listed here that you might want to investigate. Some people really love bullet journaling, which is the process by which you write out in a usually very neat handwriting. I don't have very neat handwriting, so I'm not very good at this. Exactly what you're going to do each day. You do cute little drawings. You do all the sorts of things that you might need to do in order to take pride in your schedule. Additionally, what you can do on a piece of paper is just draw out your timetable for the day. And this doesn't have to be as complex as a bullet journal. It can just be as simple as 9 a.m. I'm doing this, 10 a.m. I'm doing that. The third thing that you might see done on paper is a thing called a year plan. You might have this on your wall right now. Year plans are really useful ways to look at big assignments that are due in the future and to look at the amount of days or weeks that you've got before you need to do them. Sports people tend to use this when they're training for big tournaments and things. This can be a good way to plan for really long off goals like exams. So something to look into. Electronically, and a number of you might be more comfortable with this, you can use a thing called a to-do list app, and there are a variety of them on the market that you can use. There's ones like Google Keep, there's ones like Notebook. I know Apple has them, I know that almost all phones have them, I know that computers have them. Whatever is easiest for you to use is a good idea for you to get into the habit of using. That allows you to order those tasks by importance and to make sure that you're keeping on top of what you need to get done. The second thing that you might be familiar with is calendar apps. Things like Google Calendar. I know Microsoft's got a calendar app. I know Apple's got a calendar app. Those apps which you can use to schedule in your day. You might be more familiar with one tool than another, that's absolutely fine, but some of you might find dragging around different things easier than writing them on paper, and that's absolutely fine. The last thing that you might find really useful is a tool like Excel or Google Sheets. Some of you might find that useful because it's really nice for data collecting, but also you can make it look however you want. Excel and Google Sheets are really powerful tools that you can use to schedule. It's not important what tool you use, it's important that you're using something. As long as you've got one of those things, that's absolutely fine. Okay, I'm glad to see that you guys have all got some things on your mind around that, which is good. All right, what we're going to do now is try and go through planning a normal day, and that'll be our last little activity for today. So I'm going to try opening this up. Bear with me, this will be the first time I've tried to use this tool. Hopefully, if I go like this, you should be able to see everything. What you'll be able to see is a little screen, and it'll say planning a day here and some information over here. Hopefully that's all worked out, and we can get to going. So if we imagine that we are a student, here's my student, and we've got to book ourselves in for today. Miss Staples has posted, some of your other teachers have posted. You go, okay, I'm up. What time am I up in the morning? Because I've got to sleep. Well, I've got from 8:30 in the morning, which is when I tend to get up. Maybe I get up a little bit earlier, let's say 8. I get up at 8 in the morning, and I've got until my bedtime, which is 9 o'clock at night. I don't know about you guys, you might have different bedtimes and different getting up times. As long as you're getting your sleep, that's the most important thing. You got to ask yourself, what are your essentials? Science, absolutely essential. Going for a walk with my family, absolutely essential. Meals, absolutely essential. Other subjects, absolutely essential. Maybe you are a bit of a sports player and you've been asked by your coach while you've been in lockdown to do a bit of training as well. So those are all things you have to schedule in today. What else is important to you? Well, if these are my essentials, we'll put a little E there. Maybe you've got a couple of things that aren't essential, but they are important. So we'll do a little I here. Maybe you really like cooking. So we'll put a little thing here. You want to cook if you can. It's really important to you to play with your dog. Play with dog. And maybe it's also important, but we could say less so. Let's say goof around, to play some video games if you can. Okay, here's all the things I have to schedule in today. Let's try and put these in. So we see that Miss Staples might have posted some stuff on Google Classroom, and she might have posted it lovely and early in the morning. So what we might do is we might spend our first 30 minutes getting ready, and we'll do our day plan in 30-minute chunks. I'm sorry this isn't going to be the prettiest little handwriting, but we'll make it work. Okay, 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, I'm going to keep on going it down, 11:30, 12. And what we're going to do is write this all the way down. Now, I'm briefly going to show you a little bit of behind the scenes when I do this. Well, hopefully it's all working. It looks like it is. Okay, looks like it's all going okay. Hopefully that's come back to normal. All right, 1:30, 2, 2:30, 3, 3:30, 4, 4:30, and let's say when it gets to 5 o'clock, you just call it a day. You don't tend to do any work after 5 o'clock. So we'll say day ends, have dinner, hang out with fam, go to bed. Okay, that sounds like a reasonably good start to your day. What are we going to do for our first 30 minutes? Well, let's say we get up, shower, breakfast, get ready. So this is getting ready for your day. We get to 8:30. What do we want to do first? Maybe our mornings are best suited for some of our other subjects. Maybe we're in the mood to do some maths. We think that we can get lots of maths done in the morning. So we'll block out an hour. We'll block out from 8:30 until 9:30 to do some maths. And I'll write that there. Maths. I'm going to spend some time doing that. I know what I need to get done. So maybe I'll say we're working on some trig right now. We're working on some algebra. We'll put those notes down. Okay, it gets to 9:30. Maybe I know that at around 9:30 I need a little bit of a break. So I give myself 30 minutes just to have a little bit of a relax, maybe a cup of tea, just whatever we need just to get ready to do some more learning. Then 10, so we finished 9:30, we get to 10. Now 10 to 11, we're going to do a nice big chunk of work. What type of work are we going to do? Maybe that's our time to do some science. We know we have a bunch to get done, but we know that we can get it done and get it handed in, and that will give us more free time later. Awesome. Let's do that. And then straight after that, we think we're going to be fine. So we do another hour's worth of work on our English. Awesome. That sounds good to me. Maybe we make a little note between there, 5-min loo break. And we just know that in that final 5 minutes of the hour that we're supposed to be doing science, we're going to have a little bit of a break. That's completely reasonable. Okay. We've also got our daily walk that we tend to do with our parents. Okay, let's put that on. So 12 to 1, we tend to go on a family walk. That's really important. I might be able to reschedule some of the stuff down the bottom. That one's a non-negotiable. I can't mess around with that one. Okay, let's have a look up here. What else do we need to get done? Okay, I need to eat, so let's put a little bit of time in here to have some lunch. Maybe we get back from the walk, we're keen to have our lunch at 1 to 1:30. That's cool. And we have some more time in here to do a little bit more work. What other subjects do we need to get done? Maybe we have a little bit of social studies. Maybe we don't have that much to do for PE, but we need to do a bit of a workout. So I'll put PE here. Okay, that might be us for that day in terms of our schoolwork. What else do we need to get done? We have some training that we've been asked to do. Okay, so we need to do some training. Let's put our training after PE. We'll do our PE workout and then we'll do the rest of the training that we've got to do. That's going to take us until 4 o'clock. Okay, if we look here, we need some time to play with our dog. We need some time to do some cooking. We need time to play some video games. Okay, let's give ourselves a little bit of time playing with the dog afterwards. Play, and then here it gets to about 4:30. We need some goofing off time. Okay, let's give ourselves 30 minutes, maybe until 5:30, depending on how lenient your family is, to play some video games or read a book. And you know that at 5:30 you are going to jump in and help to make dinner. And there you've scheduled everything. Maybe you find out later on that you don't have as much work for social studies, but you have more work to do for English, in which case you give yourself some time there. This can always reschedule. Once again, we go back to how did all this go? We refer back to this schedule at the end of the day or at the end of the week, and we look at how could we improve this in future. That's a rough way to schedule. It's not the only way, but it is one way. Okay, hopefully that was all clear. Let me check the chat. Hopefully you guys have coped okay with that. All right, what I'm going to do is take a little screenshot of that and I'll put that into this slide here. Then you can use that for later. All right, if you've got any questions related to scheduling or related to the content that we've gone through this week, you can post them in the chat, post them in the comments, or ask me later. That takes us to the end of our work for today. I told you it was a short one. That was all we really needed to get done. Hopefully you should be able to get through this reasonably quickly. I hope you had a lovely long weekend. I'll check the chat to see if there's any other questions just before we go. Happy to answer those before we go today. But otherwise, have a lovely rest of your day. I hope that you guys have had a nice long weekend and that sort of thing. Let's see who else is here. Okay, all good. Just one more reminder. Make sure that if you're not in this class and you're tuning up for these, that you don't have anything else on. If you've got other classes on, you need to be going to those first. Those ones that you're timetabled for are your number one priority. You've got to be tuning into those first. Jerry, I'm doing very well. It's lovely to see you guys again. I was a bit sad that I couldn't see you on Monday and Tuesday, but we're back now. So hopefully you've all had a lovely weekend. I think that does it for us for today. I'm going to leave it here, team. Have a lovely rest of your day. Look after yourselves. Get the work done. I look forward to reading everything that you produce. All right. Catch you later.